My name is Ruth. I'm 53 years old, and if you had asked me just a year ago what my proudest accomplishment was, I would have told you without hesitation, raising my daughter Emma. She was my everything, my reason for waking up in the morning, the anchor that kept me steady after life ripped away my husband, Daniel, far too soon. I poured myself into that girl, body and soul, believing that love, sacrifice, and devotion would one day be returned with gratitude. Quick pause. Before we continue, tell us where in the world are you watching from? If you're enjoying these stories, make sure to hit subscribe, because tomorrow's episode is absolutely mind-blowing. I thought I was building a bond that could never break, but I was wrong. I remember the day my world cracked apart with perfect clarity. It was a gray Friday morning in February, the kind of morning where the clouds sit heavy and low, and the air itself feels like it carries secrets. I was in the kitchen, fixing myself a cup of tea. The kettle whistled and the steam fogged up the small window above the sink. Outside, bare branches scraped against the glass like skeletal fingers. The phone rang. I smiled when I saw Emma's name glowing on the screen. My heart always jumped a little whenever she called. No matter how old she got, no matter how independent she seemed, she would always be my little girl. I answered quickly, already forming words of warmth. "Emma, sweetheart," I said, cradling the phone against my ear. "I was just thinking of you. How's my beautiful daughter today?" There was silence on the other end, just for a moment. Then a voice that wasn't hers replied, "Mrs. Thompson, this is Lena." Well, I suppose I should say Emma's wife now. The words didn't register at first. I blinked, confused, my hand tightening on the phone. "Wife?" I echoed. "What do you mean, wife?" A small laugh drifted down the line, but it wasn't warm. It was sharp, like the edge of broken glass. "Oh, didn't Emma tell you? We got married yesterday, a small ceremony, very intimate. We only invited special people." Special people. Those two words carved themselves into my heart like a blade. I felt the floor tilt beneath me, my knees threatening to give way. I sat down hard on the nearest chair, clutching the phone as if it weighed 1,000 pounds. You got married?" My voice shook. "Yesterday?" "Yes," Lena said, her tone dripping with satisfaction. "It was beautiful. Emma looked stunning. Her family was there. Well, my family. My parents, my siblings, our closest friends, just the people who matter." I pressed my hand against my chest, as though I could hold myself together by sheer force. "And I wasn't," I swallowed the lump in my throat, "I wasn't invited?" There was a pause, and then Lena said with a smile I could hear through the line, "No, it was for special people, I'm sure you understand." "Understand." I stared at the pale pink dress hanging in the corner of my bedroom, the dress I had carefully chosen months ago for Emma's wedding day. The shoes I had tucked into their box, waiting to be worn with pride. The envelope with $1,000 I had set aside as a wedding gift. All of it waiting, all of it useless. I don't understand," I whispered. "I'm her mother." And then I heard Emma's voice in the background. She didn't take the phone from Lena. She didn't tell her new wife to stop. She didn't defend me. All she said, barely loud enough to catch, was, "Mom, it was small. Just us and the witnesses. It's not a big deal." Not a big deal. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the phone against the wall and watch it shatter into 1,000 pieces, the way my heart had. But instead, I sat there, paralyzed, listening to Lena's soft chuckle and Emma's silence. When the call ended, I stayed frozen at the kitchen table, staring at the steam that curled from my forgotten tea. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes? Hours? It didn't matter. Time had lost its shape. All I knew was that my daughter had taken the most important day of her life and cut me out of it. Deliberately, cruelly. Later that day, when I logged into Facebook, I saw the proof of my erasure. Photos of Emma in her wedding dress, standing beside Lena, smiling, laughing. The glow of love all over her face. And around them, Lena's family, her parents, her siblings, their friends, all raising glasses of champagne, celebrating the union. But where was I? I was nowhere. I was the ghost in the background, the invisible woman, the mother whose sacrifices had built the very foundation of Emma's life, and yet, in that moment, I didn't exist. I clicked through the photos one by one, each click driving the knife deeper. Emma's new in-laws beaming with pride, her siblings-in-law hugging her tight, her mother-in-law adjusting her veil, roles that should have been mine, moments that should have been shared with me. My hands trembled so hard I nearly dropped the phone. I closed my laptop and pressed my palms to my eyes until stars burst in the darkness. Why? I whispered to no one. Why wasn't I enough? It was Auntie Grace who came over that evening, her arms full of groceries and her eyes full of worry. Grace has always been the gentle one, soft-spoken and kind, the sort of woman who can calm storms with just a touch. She hugged me tight, and I broke apart in her arms. She didn't invite me, I sobbed into her shoulder. My own daughter didn't want me there. Oh, Ruthie, Grace murmured, rocking me like I was a child again. I'm so sorry. I can't imagine the pain you're feeling. But listen, this doesn't mean you're not important. Sometimes children lose their way. Sometimes they forget where they came from. But that doesn't erase what you've given her. It doesn't erase your love. I pulled back, wiping my tears. She said it was only for special people, and I wasn't special enough. Grace's eyes filled with tears. That's not true. That's Lena talking, not Emma. Don't let that woman's cruelty define your worth. But the words still echoed in my mind. Special people. The next day, Auntie Clara stormed into my house like a thundercloud. Clara is the opposite of Grace. Where Grace soothes, Clara strikes. She's fierce, blunt, unafraid to speak the truths others shy away from. I saw those pictures, she said, slamming her purse on the table. That girl of yours has lost her damn mind. Clara? No, Ruth, don't you defend her. Not after this. You sacrificed your life for Emma. You worked double shifts. You scraped and saved. You gave her everything, and this is how she repays you? By cutting you out like you're trash? Clara's voice shook with fury. If Daniel were alive, God rest his soul, he'd be turning in his grave. I pressed my hands together, trying to hold back the sob that rose in my throat. Don't you think I know that? Don't you think I've been asking myself what I did wrong? You didn't do anything wrong, Clara snapped. Emma made her choice. And you'd better believe it wasn't an accident. That Lena girl has her claws in deep. She's been whispering in Emma's ear for years, twisting her against you. And now she's succeeded. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say that Emma still loved me, that this was a misunderstanding, that surely my daughter hadn't meant to hurt me like this. But deep down, in the hollow ache of my chest, I knew Clara was right. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the pale pink dress still hanging in the corner of my room, the dress I had dreamed of wearing to Emma's wedding. The dress I would never wear. My body ached with grief, but my mind burned with questions. How had it come to this? When did the girl who used to run into my arms after school, clutching finger paintings and spelling tests, become a woman who could erase me from her life's most important day? And why did she let Lena be the one to tell me? Sleep never came. Instead, I listened to the creaks of the house, the ticking of the clock, the faint hum of the refrigerator. All sounds of a life I had built with love, now echoing with betrayal. I didn't know it then, but that phone call, the call that shattered me, was only the beginning. Because betrayal has a way of multiplying. And when money, inheritance, and power get tangled up with family, the wounds cut deeper than you ever imagined. I wasn't invited to my daughter's wedding, but soon I would learn truths that made that absence feel like the smallest of cruelties. And I would learn through pain and fire that sometimes the people you love most are the ones who will try to destroy you. But I would also learn something else. Something Auntie Clara, in her blunt way, whispered to me later that week. Ruth, you're stronger than you think. And one day, you're gonna make them regret underestimating you. She was right. But that was still far in the future. Back then, I was just a mother, broken and bewildered, staring at a dress that would never be worn and a daughter I no longer recognized. When Lena said those words, only special people, I thought they would fade over time, soften in the corners, lose their sting. But they didn't. They grew sharper, echoing in my head at the strangest hours. I'd hear them when I boiled water for tea. I'd hear them when I opened the refrigerator. I'd hear them when I walked past the pale pink dress hanging in my room, the one I had bought to wear on the day I thought I would be smiling in wedding photographs beside my daughter. Only special people. It was like being told I was invisible, like my years of sacrifice had evaporated. I had been erased, and my absence was no accident. I couldn't stop replaying memories in my mind, trying to figure out when Emma stopped seeing me as special. I thought back to the day she was born. I remember Daniel's hand gripping mine in the hospital room, his eyes wet with tears when the doctor laid that tiny baby girl on my chest. She's perfect, Ruth, he whispered. Our Emma, she's going to change everything. And she did. She changed everything. She made sleepless nights worth enduring. She made me push through exhaustion to work overtime shifts. She made the house feel alive even after Daniel passed away. Emma was the reason I didn't give up when life turned cold and lonely. She was the fire that kept me alive. I used to believe that kind of bond could never be broken, but now it felt like my entire life had been a one-sided devotion, and I was finally being told the truth. I wasn't special. The morning after the call, Auntie Grace came by again. She brought a casserole like she always does when she doesn't know what else to do. The smell of baked cheese filled the kitchen, but my stomach turned at the thought of food. Eat a little, Ruth, Grace said gently, setting the dish on the table. You haven't eaten since yesterday. I shook my head. I can't. Every time I think of swallowing, it's like those words get stuck in my throat. Grace reached across the table, her warm hand wrapping mine. Sweetheart, you can't let her words define you. Lena wanted to hurt you. She wanted to make you feel small. But Emma knows better. Does she? I snapped, harsher than I meant. If Emma knew better, she would have stopped her. She would have said, don't talk to my mother like that. She would have said, of course my mom is invited. But she didn't. She let Lena say it. She let it stand. Grace's eyes shimmered with tears. People change under influence. You know that. Lena's got her hooks in her, but deep down... Deep down? I cut her off. Grace, I don't care about deep down. Deep down doesn't matter when she let me sit here, alone, while her whole new family toasted to her happiness. Deep down doesn't mean anything when she didn't even call to tell me herself. She let Lena tell me, like I was a stranger. Grace didn't argue after that. She just sat with me, quiet, while the casserole cooled between us. Later that evening, Auntie Clara stormed in again. She had that look in her eyes, the one that could burn through steel. She didn't even bother taking off her coat. Have you spoken to her? Clara demanded. I shook my head. No. Good. Clara said firmly. "Don't you dare go chasing after her. Don't you dare beg for scraps of respect. She owes you, not the other way around." I sighed. "She's my daughter, Clara. I can't just—" "You can," Clara cut in sharply. "And you must. Don't you see? This isn't just about a wedding. This is about control. That Lena woman wants to make you feel worthless, so you'll bend, so you'll keep giving, so you'll never stand up for yourself. And Emma's letting her. She's letting her mother's dignity be trampled. That's not just disrespect, Ruth. That's betrayal." I closed my eyes, trying to block out Clara's words, but they rang too true. Deep down, I already knew it. That night, alone in my bedroom, I opened the closet and pulled out the dress. I ran my fingers over the soft fabric, imagining for a moment what could have been. The way I would have walked into the church or the garden or wherever they chose to marry. The way Emma might have looked at me and smiled, proud to have me by her side. The photographs we would have taken together, me with my only daughter on her wedding day. But all I had was silence. Silence and a cruel phrase ringing in my ears. "Only special people." I sat on the bed, the dress pulled in my lap, and I wept until my chest ached. The next morning, I tried to carry on as if life were normal. I swept the kitchen, I folded laundry, I even went to the grocery store. But everywhere I turned, reminders of Emma's wedding mocked me. A bouquet of white roses in the store window, a rack of wedding cards with gold lettering, a woman in the aisle talking about her daughter's big day. By the time I got home, my legs felt like they were made of lead. I collapsed into a chair and whispered to the empty house, "When did I stop being special?" That's when I thought of Daniel. If he were alive, what would he say? I could almost hear his voice, steady and kind. "Ruth, you gave her everything. If she can't see it, that's on her, not on you." But it didn't stop the ache. It didn't stop the gnawing question that tore at me. Had I done too much? Had I loved her so fiercely, sacrificed so completely, that she took me for granted? That she thought my love was guaranteed, no matter how she treated me? Days passed, and the silence between Emma and me grew louder. She didn't call, she didn't text, she didn't explain. And I didn't reach out, though every bone in my body longed to. One evening, Grace called me on the phone. "I think you should try to talk to her, Ruth. Maybe she's waiting for you to reach out." I closed my eyes, holding back tears. If she wanted me there, Grace, I would have been there. I'm done begging for a place in my own daughter's life. Grace sighed, but she didn't push further. It was Clara, of course, who said what Grace wouldn't. She showed up the next day with fire in her voice. "Ruth, listen to me. That girl of yours chose her side. And if you keep pretending this is just a misunderstanding, you're going to bleed yourself dry. I've seen it before. Parents giving and giving until there's nothing left but ashes. Don't let that be you." I tried to protest, but Clara held up her hand. "You are more than Emma's mother. You are a woman who deserves respect. And if Emma can't give it, then maybe she doesn't deserve what you've been giving her." Her words landed heavy, too heavy, because for the first time, I thought about what I had given Emma in numbers, not just love. The rent payments when she and Lena were struggling, the grocery bills I covered, the loans I never asked back, the medical emergencies, the car repairs, all of it, all flowing from me to her like a river that never stopped. I realized with a chill that Clara was right. I wasn't just invisible, I was being used. And the cruelest part? I had volunteered for it. As I sat there, the pink dress still hanging untouched, I whispered the words out loud, almost like a vow. "I will never forget what you said, Lena. Only special people. One day, you're going to learn what that really means." I didn't know then how much truth was in those words. I didn't know how deep the betrayal would go, or how much fight it would take to reclaim myself. All I knew was that my daughter had chosen a new family, and in doing so she had told me exactly where I stood. Outside the circle. On the edge. Uninvited. Uninvited. After the wedding revelation, days bled into nights, and nights into days. Time no longer felt steady. It felt slippery. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time. So, if you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Like sand running through my fingers no matter how tightly I tried to hold it. Some mornings I woke up thinking it was all a nightmare. That Emma would call me with excitement in her voice, telling me to pick out a dress, to come early and help her with the veil. And then reality would slam back into me, cruel and cold. I wasn't invited. One Saturday afternoon, Auntie Grace came over with her knitting bag slung over her shoulder. She always carried it with her, as though stitching yarn together was her way of stitching broken people back together too. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, her gentle eyes scanning my face. "You're not eating enough," she said softly, looping yarn over her needles. "Your cheeks are hollow, Ruth." I shrugged. "Food tastes like ash. What's the point?" Grace's hand stilled. She set the knitting down and reached across to hold my hand. "The point is, you're still here. You're still alive. And you have to take care of yourself, even when your heart feels like it's been cut in two." Her kindness unraveled me. Tears spilled down my cheeks, hot and relentless. "Grace," I whispered, my voice breaking. How could she do this to me? How could my own daughter look at me, the woman who gave her life, who raised her after her father died, who sacrificed everything, and decide I wasn't good enough for her wedding? Grace's eyes welled with tears, too, and she pulled me into her arms. "I don't know, Ruthie. I don't know. Sometimes love blinds us, and sometimes it makes our children forget where they came from. But this isn't about your worth. This is about their choices. Don't you carry their sin as your shame." I sobbed against her shoulder, the weight of years of motherhood pressing down on me. I thought if I gave enough, loved enough, she'd always see me as her home. "You are her home," Grace whispered, even if she's too lost to admit it right now. The words soothed me for a moment, like balm on a raw wound. But later, when Grace left and the silence of the house returned, the ache surged back, because being her home meant nothing if she never came back to it. The next day, Auntie Clara showed up. She didn't bring knitting or casseroles. She brought fury. She barged into the living room, her heels clicking against the floor like gunfire, her purse hitting the coffee table with a thud. "I saw the latest pictures," she said, her voice sharp enough to slice through glass. My stomach dropped. "Pictures?" "On Instagram. The honeymoon. Beaches. Cocktails. Fancy dinners. And do you know what the caption said?" Clara's nostrils flared as she dug her phone out of her purse and thrust it toward me. "Best week of our lives. Surrounded by the people who matter most." My vision blurred. The people who matter most. Another knife, twisted deep. Clara snatched the phone back and shoved it away. "Ruth, I told you before, and I'll tell you again. Stop making excuses for her. That girl is not blind. She's not deaf. She knows exactly what she's doing, and she's enjoying every minute of it." I shook my head, my voice weak. "She's my daughter. She can't mean it like that." "Oh, for heaven's sake," Clara snapped. "Do you think being your daughter gives her a free pass to treat you like dirt? Blood doesn't excuse betrayal. Family doesn't erase cruelty. If anything, it makes it worse. Because she knows how deeply she's cutting you, and she does it anyway." Her words were harsh, but they struck a chord in me. My chest tightened as I whispered, "Maybe I failed her. Maybe I smothered her. Maybe I gave too much. Maybe she's punishing me for that." Clara slammed her hand on the table, making me jump. "Don't you dare blame yourself. You hear me, Ruth? You gave her the best life you could. You worked yourself half to death to give her opportunities most kids only dream about. And instead of thanking you, she spits in your face. That's not your failure. That's hers. Tears threatened again, but this time they weren't just sorrow. They were anger. Anger that I had buried under excuses for too long. I whispered, "But she's all I have." Clara's expression softened, but her voice stayed firm. Then it's time to ask yourself, Ruth, what do you have if what you hold on to is hurting you? The question hung in the air, heavy and unbearable. That evening, after Clara left, I sat in the living room staring at old photo albums. Emma's first steps, her high school graduation, the smile on her face when she got accepted into college. In every photo, I was there in the background, cheering her on, holding her up, paying for everything she needed. I thought of the rent checks I had written for her and Lena when they couldn't make ends meet, the groceries I had delivered to their apartment, the vacations I had skipped so they could take trips, the thousands upon thousands of dollars funneled into their lives without hesitation. And now, in return, I wasn't even worthy of standing in the background of her wedding photos. The more I thought about it, the more Clara's words rang in my head. Don't you dare blame yourself. The next morning, Grace returned, this time with flowers. She set them on the counter and gave me a tired smile. "Clara called me," she admitted. "She's worried." I almost laughed. A dry, humorless sound. Clara's always worried, usually about other people's mistakes. Grace tilted her head. "Sometimes she's right, Ruth. Sometimes her fire is what we need when we're drowning." I sat at the table, my hands curled around a cold mug of tea. She says Emma betrayed me, and part of me knows she's right. But part of me still wants to believe Emma's the little girl who used to slip notes under my bedroom door that said, "I love you, Mommy." Grace's eyes softened. "You can love that little girl forever, Ruth, but don't confuse her with the woman she's become. That woman has made choices, and those choices have hurt you. It's okay to grieve that. It's okay to be angry." For the first time, I let myself nod, let myself admit it. I am angry, Grace. I'm furious, not just at Emma, at myself, for letting it get this far, for giving until there's nothing left of me. Grace squeezed my hand. "Then maybe it's time to stop giving." Her words echoed Clara's, but said with kindness instead of fury, and for the first time I felt something shift inside me. That night I dreamed of Daniel. He was standing in our old garden, smiling at me. He didn't speak, but his eyes told me everything. "You've done enough, Ruth. It's time to take care of yourself." When I woke, tears stained my pillow, but there was something new in my chest, too. A spark. Small, fragile, but alive. I didn't know yet how far Emma and Lena would go. I didn't know the battles ahead, the lies, the manipulation, the courtroom drama that would nearly break me in two. But I knew this much. I was no longer just a mother waiting by the phone. I was a woman who had been betrayed, and I was beginning, just beginning, to see the strength that betrayal could awaken. Because sometimes it takes Auntie Grace's tears to soften your heart, and sometimes it takes Auntie Clara's anger to harden your resolve. And between the two, I was starting to find my own voice again. I used to believe that gifts were more than objects. They were love wrapped in paper, sacrifice hidden inside envelopes, time and thought turned into something tangible. I gave Emma gifts her whole life. Her first bicycle, a lavender sweater she wore until it frayed, a silver locket with her initials on her 16th birthday. Each gift carried a piece of me, a fragment of my heart, a reminder that I saw her, that she mattered. So when she got engaged, I started planning the most important gift of all. I didn't tell her at first. I wanted it to be a surprise, the kind of gesture she would remember forever. I set aside $1,000. Folding each bill into an envelope, I tucked into my dresser drawer. It wasn't easy. I had to skip my own little luxuries. New shoes, a trip to the salon, even dinners out with Grace and Clara. But I didn't mind. Emma's happiness was always worth more to me than my own. I pictured the moment 100 times. The ceremony would end, the music would play, and people would gather around to congratulate the new couple. I would hug Emma tight, press the envelope into her hand, and whisper, "This is for you, sweetheart. Start your new life with love and security." I imagined her eyes filling with tears, her voice trembling as she said, "Thank you, Mom. I couldn't have done this without you." That moment never came. Instead, the envelope stayed locked in my drawer, hidden under old sweaters. The pale pink dress stayed hanging in the closet, untouched. The shoes remained in their box, soles pristine. The day after Auntie Clara's outburst, I found myself standing in front of that closet again. I pulled out the dress and laid it on the bed. Its fabric shimmered softly in the afternoon light, delicate and hopeful, like it was made for joy. I traced the seams with my fingertips, and suddenly the weight of it hit me. Not just the fabric, but the meaning. I had spent $200 on this dress, money I could have saved, money I could have spent on myself for once. I told myself it didn't matter. I wanted to look beautiful for Emma's wedding photos. I wanted her to be proud of me. But there were no photos with me in them. I opened the shoebox and stared at the pale heels I had chosen to match. I had practiced walking in them around the house, laughing at myself when I wobbled. "I'll get used to them," I had told Grace, "so I don't embarrass Emma by tripping down the aisle." The aisle. There was no aisle for me, no seat reserved, no place in the room where vows were spoken. I sat on the bed, the dress across my lap, the shoes by my feet, the envelope heavy in my hand, the gift I wasn't allowed to give. That's when the grief twisted into something darker, humiliation. I thought of all the nights I had worked overtime, aching in my back and feet, so Emma could have what she needed. I thought of the groceries I'd hauled up 3 flights of stairs to her apartment when she and Lena couldn't afford food. I thought of the rent checks I wrote every month without fail. 3 years, $500 each month, $18,000 in total. And yet, when it came time to stand by her side, I was left behind. Tears spilled down my face as I whispered into the empty room. Was I just a wallet to her? Was that all I ever was? The sound of the door opening startled me. It was Auntie Grace, holding a bag of fruit she had brought from the market. She saw the dress on the bed, the shoes, the envelope in my hand, and her face crumpled with sorrow. "Oh, Ruthie," she said softly, setting the bag down and sitting beside me. "You kept it all ready, didn't you?" I nodded, unable to speak. Grace reached out, smoothing the fabric of the dress. "It's beautiful. You would have looked stunning in it." "It doesn't matter," I choked out. "She didn't want me there. I wasn't special enough." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "Don't say that. You are her mother. You will always be special." "Not to her," I said bitterly. "Not anymore." Grace tried to take the envelope from my hand, but I pulled it back. I was going to give her this, $1,000, for her future, for her new life. And now look at me, sitting here with money she doesn't even want, like a fool. "You're not a fool," Grace whispered. "Yes, I am," my voice broke. I gave and gave and gave, thinking it meant something, thinking it would bind us together. But all it did was teach her to take me for granted. I thought this gift would be love, but to her, it would just be another transaction. The anger in my chest bubbled up, hot and relentless. Do you know what hurts the most, Grace? Not that she didn't want the money. Not that she didn't want the dress or the photos or me in her life. It's that she didn't even care enough to tell me herself. She let Lena do it. Like I was nothing. like I wasn't worth the breath. Grace pulled me into her arms, rocking me like she used to when I was a girl with a broken heart. She's blind right now, Ruthie. She's under Lena's spell. But blindness doesn't erase your worth. One day she'll see what she's done. But I wasn't so sure anymore. Later that night, Clara came by. She took one look at the dress and the shoes and the envelope, and her jaw tightened. "Burn it," she said flatly. "What?" I blinked at her. "Burn the dress, burn the shoes, tear up the envelope. Don't let them hold power over you." I shook my head. I can't. It feels like giving up on her. Clara crossed her arms, her eyes blazing. "She already gave up on you, Ruth. Don't let her betrayal sit in your closet like some shrine. Every time you look at that dress, you're letting her cut you again. Destroy it. Free yourself." Grace, who had stayed for tea, gasped. "Clara, don't say that. Ruth doesn't need to burn things. She needs hope." Clara's voice was like iron. "Hope is fine, Grace, but it won't protect her. Symbols matter. That dress, those shoes, that money, they're symbols of a love she rejected. Letting them linger is like leaving the knife in the wound." I sat between them, torn. Grace's softness, Clara's fire. Part of me wanted to cling to the hope that one day Emma would regret this, that she would want me back. But another part of me, the part Clara spoke to, wanted to scream, to destroy, to stop being a victim of objects that mocked me. That night, I didn't burn the dress. I didn't burn the shoes. I tucked the envelope back into the drawer. But Clara's words stayed in my mind like embers waiting to catch fire. The next morning, I opened Facebook again. There was a new photo. Emma and Lena, arm in arm, laughing in front of a honeymoon suite. The caption read, "Starting our forever, surrounded by love." Surrounded by love. And again, I wasn't there. I closed the computer and whispered to myself, "One day, Emma, one day you'll know what it feels like to be left out, to be erased, to be told you're not special." I didn't know what form that day would take. I didn't know the storm that was coming. But the gift I wasn't allowed to give, the dress, the shoes, the envelope, they became something else that day, not reminders of rejection, not proof of my invisibility. They became promises. Promises that I would not be silenced forever. Promises that one day the truth would come out. People tell you not to look. Stay off social media, they say. Don't torture yourself. But when your heart is bleeding, you press on the bruise anyway. Maybe it's to prove the pain is real. Maybe it's because some part of you hopes you'll find proof it isn't as bad as you think. That's what I told myself the night I opened Emma's Facebook page again. It had been a week since Lena's phone call, a week since I found out I wasn't invited to the wedding. I thought maybe by now Emma would have posted something. Anything. Acknowledging me. A tag. A thank you. Even a simple, "Wish my mom could have been here." Instead, I found an album titled, "Our Perfect Day." I clicked, and the screen filled with a photo that nearly knocked the breath from my lungs. Emma stood in a flowing white dress, her hair swept into an elegant bun, her face glowing with joy. She was holding Lena's hand, gazing into her eyes with a smile so radiant it looked like the sun itself had bent to shine on her. She looked happy, and I wasn't there to see it. I scrolled through the album, each picture a dagger, Emma and Lena exchanging vows beneath an arch of roses, Lena's mother adjusting Emma's veil, Lena's father giving a toast, his arm wrapped around my daughter like she belonged to him, Emma cutting the cake, laughing as Lena smeared frosting on her nose. I zoomed in on one picture, Emma dancing with Lena's little niece, the child's tiny hands wrapped around Emma's, her face beaming up at her. That should have been my moment. That should have been me, dancing with Emma, laughing with her, reminding her she would always be my little girl. But in every photo, I was nowhere. I wasn't just absent. I had been erased. Tears blurred my vision as I scrolled faster, desperate for something, anything, that proved Emma thought of me. But the deeper I went, the clearer it became. Every caption, every tag, every smiling face, they all belonged to Lena's side. Emma had chosen her new family, and I was nothing but a shadow she left behind. At the bottom of the album, there was one photo that gutted me more than the rest. It was a group shot. Emma and Lena in the center, surrounded by Lena's parents, her siblings, her cousins, her friends. Everyone smiling, arms around each other, glasses raised. The caption read, "Surrounded by the people who matter most." The words burned into my chest. I stared at the screen until my vision swam, until my breath came in ragged gasps. I felt like I was drowning in plain air. When I finally tore myself away from the computer, I staggered into the kitchen and collapsed at the table. My hands shook as I whispered to the empty house, "I don't matter. I don't matter at all." The sound of the front door opening startled me. Auntie Grace stepped inside, carrying a paper bag of groceries. She took one look at my tear-stained face and the glow of the computer screen behind me, and her shoulders sagged. "Oh, Ruthie," she said softly, setting the bag down. "You looked again, didn't you?" I nodded, unable to find words. Grace sat beside me, her eyes gentle but wet with unshed tears. "You have to stop doing this to yourself." I needed to see," I whispered. "I needed to know if maybe she left some sign that she thought of me. But she didn't. She's surrounded by them now, and I'm nothing." Grace shook her head firmly. "You are not nothing. You are her mother. You are the reason she is who she is. She can erase you from photos, but she can't erase you from her blood, from her soul." I let out a bitter laugh. "She already has." Before Grace could answer, Clara stormed in, her voice echoing through the hall. "Where are you, Ruth?" "I've been calling." She marched into the kitchen, her eyes narrowing as she spotted the open laptop. "Oh, for crying out loud! Don't tell me you were looking at those damn pictures again." I wiped my cheeks, but Clara was already shaking her head. "Ruth, you're killing yourself. Every time you click, you hand them the knife. Stop letting them stab you." "I just wanted to see her," I whispered. "I just wanted to feel like I was part of her day." Clara's jaw tightened. "You weren't part of it. She made sure of that. And the sooner you accept it, the sooner you can stop bleeding over it." Grace shot her a look. "Clara, don't be so harsh." "No, Grace, she needs the truth." Clara's voice was like iron. "Ruth, your daughter didn't just forget you. She excluded you. She replaced you. And the sooner you see Lena for what she is, a manipulative leech who's turned Emma against you, the sooner you can start fighting back." "Fighting back?" I whispered, my voice trembling. Clara leaned forward, her eyes blazing. "Yes. You think this ends with a wedding? No, this is just the beginning. That woman has her claws in Emma, and she's not going to stop until she's drained you dry. Mark my words." A shiver ran through me. I wanted to dismiss Clara's words as paranoia, as bitterness. But deep down, I felt the truth in them. The wedding wasn't just about love. It was about control, and I was the obstacle they had decided to cut out. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The glow of Emma's wedding photos burned into my mind. I kept hearing Lena's voice on the phone, smug and cruel. Only special people. And Emma's silence. That silence was the loudest betrayal of all. I pressed my hand to my chest and whispered into the darkness, "If I don't matter to her, then what was all of it for?" The house gave no answer. The night offered no comfort. But somewhere deep inside, Beneath the grief and humiliation, something stirred. Anger. Not just at Lena, not just at Emma, at myself too, for letting it get this far, for giving so much that I had nothing left but rejection. As the hours passed, the anger grew. It wasn't a wildfire, not yet. It was a spark, a quiet, smoldering ember, but even an ember can burn if you feed it. And I knew, somehow, that the fire was coming, her face glowing with joy. She was holding Lena's hand, gazing into her eyes with a smile so radiant it looked like the sun itself had bent to shine on her. She looked happy. And I wasn't there to see it. I scrolled through the album, each picture a dagger. Emma and Lena exchanging vows beneath an arch of roses. Lena's mother adjusting Emma's veil. Lena's father giving a toast, his arm wrapped around my daughter like she belonged to him. Emma cutting the cake, laughing as Lena smeared frosting on her nose. I zoomed in on one picture. Emma dancing with Lena's little niece. The child's tiny hands wrapped around Emma's, her face beaming up at her. That should have been my moment. That should have been me, dancing with Emma, laughing with her, reminding her she would always be my little girl. But in every photo I was nowhere. I wasn't just absent. I had been erased. Tears blurred my vision as I scrolled faster, desperate for something, anything, that proved Emma thought of me. But the deeper I went, the clearer it became. Every caption, every tag, every smiling face, they all belonged to Lena's side. Emma had chosen her new family, and I was nothing but a shadow she left behind. At the bottom of the album, there was one photo that gutted me more than the rest. It was a group shot. Emma and Lena in the center, surrounded by Lena's parents, her siblings, her cousins, her friends. Everyone smiling, arms around each other, glasses raised. The caption read, "Surrounded by the people who matter most." The words burned into my chest. I stared at the screen until my vision swam, until my breath came in ragged gasps. I felt like I was drowning in plain air. When I finally tore myself away from the computer, I staggered into the kitchen and collapsed at the table. My hands shook as I whispered to the empty house, "I don't matter. I don't matter at all." The sound of the front door opening startled me. Auntie Grace stepped inside, carrying a paper bag of groceries. She took one look at my tear-stained face and the glow of the computer screen behind me, and her shoulders sagged. "Oh, Ruthie," she said softly, setting the bag down. "You looked again, didn't you?" I nodded, unable to find words. Grace sat beside me, her eyes gentle but wet with unshed tears. "You have to stop doing this to yourself." I needed to see," I whispered. "I needed to know if maybe she left some sign that she thought of me, but she didn't. She's surrounded by them now, and I'm nothing." Grace shook her head firmly. "You are not nothing. You are her mother. You are the reason she is who she is. She can erase you from photos, but she can't erase you from her blood, from her soul." I let out a bitter laugh. "She already has." Before Grace could answer, Clara stormed in, her voice echoing through the hall. "Where are you, Ruth?" "I've been calling." She marched into the kitchen, her eyes narrowing as she spotted the open laptop. "Oh, for crying out loud! Don't tell me you were looking at those damn pictures again." I wiped my cheeks, but Clara was already shaking her head. "Ruth, you're killing yourself. Every time you click, you hand them the knife. Stop letting them stab you." "I just wanted to see her," I whispered. "I just wanted to feel like I was part of her day." Clara's jaw tightened. "You weren't part of it. She made sure of that. And the sooner you accept it, the sooner you can stop bleeding over it. Grace shot her a look. Clara, don't be so harsh. No, Grace, she needs the truth. Clara's voice was like iron. Ruth, your daughter didn't just forget you. She excluded you. She replaced you. And the sooner you see Lena for what she is, a manipulative leech who's turned Emma against you, the sooner you can start fighting back. Fighting back? I whispered, my voice trembling. Clara leaned forward, her eyes blazing. Yes! You think this ends with a wedding? No, this is just the beginning. That woman has her claws in Emma, and she's not going to stop until she's drained you dry. Mark my words. A shiver ran through me. I wanted to dismiss Clara's words as paranoia, as bitterness. But deep down, I felt the truth in them. The wedding wasn't just about love. It was about control. And I was the obstacle they had decided to cut out. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the glow of Emma's wedding photos burned into my mind. I kept hearing Lena's voice on the phone, smug and cruel. Only special people. And Emma's silence. That silence was the loudest betrayal of all. I pressed my hand to my chest and whispered into the darkness. If I don't matter to her, then what was all of it for? The house gave no answer. The night offered no comfort. But somewhere deep inside, beneath the grief and humiliation, something stirred. Anger. Not just at Lena, not just at Emma, at myself too, for letting it get this far, for giving so much that I had nothing left but rejection. As the hours passed, the anger grew. It wasn't a wildfire, not yet. It was a spark, a quiet, smoldering ember. But even an ember can burn if you feed it. And I knew, somehow, that the fire was coming. It started with whispers. At first, they were just small things, little comments people let slip when they thought I wasn't listening. I heard them at church, in the grocery store, even from neighbors who barely knew me. They weren't direct, never pointed, but they stuck to me like burrs. Did you hear? Emma and her wife bought a new car. Someone said they're looking at a bigger apartment. I heard Lena quit her job. Emma's covering everything now. I would force a smile, nod politely, and pretend my stomach wasn't twisting into knots. Because every time I heard those whispers, I thought of the checks I had written, the groceries I had delivered, the bills I had covered. I thought of the sacrifices I had made quietly, believing I was helping Emma build a future. And now that future seemed to belong to Lena. One evening, Grace came over with her knitting bag, as she often did when she sensed I was spiraling. She set the yarn aside, poured us both tea, and studied me with those gentle, searching eyes. "You've been quiet, Ruthie," she said softly, "quieter than usual. What's on your mind?" I hesitated, staring at the steam curling from my cup. "Money," I admitted finally, "or rather, where it's gone." Grace tilted her head. "What do you mean?" I sighed. $18,000 in rent checks, thousands more in groceries, bills, emergencies. I've poured so much into Emma's life, Grace. And now I hear she and Lena are living comfortably, buying new things, upgrading. And I can't shake the feeling that they're using my sacrifices to build a life I'm not even part of. Grace reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "You gave out of love. That's never wasted." But I pulled my hand back, frustration rising. Isn't it wasted if it teaches her I'll always give, no matter how she treats me? Isn't it wasted if it makes her think my love comes with no boundaries? Grace didn't answer. She just looked at me with sorrow in her eyes, and that silence said more than words ever could. The next day, Clara came storming in like a storm cloud, as she always did when she felt injustice brewing. She didn't bother with pleasantries. She sat down across from me, folded her arms, and said flatly, "They're bleeding you dry." I blinked. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb, Ruth, Clara snapped. I've been hearing things. People are talking. Emma and Lena's new lifestyle, their little luxuries. You think that's from hard work? Please. That's your money. Every dollar you've given them is lining their pockets while they cut you out of their lives. I felt my throat tighten. Clara, don't. No, listen to me. Clara's eyes burned with fury. This isn't just about a wedding. This is about control. Lena knows you'll sacrifice anything for Emma, and she's using it. She's turned your daughter into a puppet, and the strings are your bank account. If you don't cut those strings, Ruth, you'll wake up one day with nothing left. Her words hit like a slap. My mind raced through every sacrifice, every check, every late-night run to Emma's apartment with groceries she claimed she couldn't afford. I wanted to deny it, to say Clara was exaggerating, but deep down I felt the ugly truth gnawing at me. Clara leaned forward, her voice low and sharp. You think it's coincidence you weren't invited to that wedding? No, Lena doesn't want you near, because she knows you'd see the truth. She wants Emma isolated, dependent, and easy to control. And the money? That's just the leash. I sat there, stunned into silence. Grace arrived later that evening, catching the tail end of Clara's tirade. She tried to soften it, as she always did. Clara, you can't just assume the worst. Maybe Emma and Lena are managing fine on their own. Maybe Ruth's support was just a stepping stone. Clara snorted. A stepping stone? It's a whole damn bridge, Grace. Built out of Ruth's blood, sweat, and tears. And you watch, they'll keep walking across it until there's nothing left but rubble. I buried my face in my hands, my voice breaking. But she's my daughter. How do I stop giving when all I've ever done is give? Clara's voice softened slightly, but her tone stayed firm. By remembering, you're not just her mother. You're a woman, Ruth. A woman who deserves respect. And respect doesn't come from bleeding yourself dry. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed replaying every memory of Emma asking for help. The time she called me crying because her rent was overdue. The time she claimed Lena had lost her job and they couldn't afford groceries. The time she said her car needed repairs or she'd lose her job. Every time I said yes. Every time I opened my wallet, believing I was saving her. But now, with Clara's words echoing in my head, I wondered. Had I been saving her, or had I been feeding Lena's control? Around midnight, I got up and went to the dresser. I opened the drawer where the envelope still lay, the gift I wasn't allowed to give. I pulled it out, stared at the crisp bills inside, and whispered, "Not anymore." It wasn't a vow yet, not fully. It was just a whisper, but even whispers can grow into roars if you let them. And I could feel, deep down, that Clara was right. The wedding had been the beginning, not the end. The whispers of money were growing louder, and soon they would become a storm. It had been weeks since the wedding call, weeks of silence from Emma, of whispers in town, of Clara's warnings and Grace's tears, weeks of staring at that pale pink dress in the closet, the unopened envelope in the drawer, and the photos that still haunted me when I closed my eyes. I told myself I would wait for Emma to come to me, that she would call, apologize, explain, but every day that passed proved me wrong, and the more wrong I felt, the angrier I became. Clara's words replayed in my head, "They're bleeding you dry. And if you don't cut the strings, you'll wake up one day with nothing left." So when Emma finally texted me, the fury was already simmering just beneath my skin. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't an explanation. It was a single line. "Mom, can we borrow $2,000? Lena's hours got cut at work." I stared at the screen, my heart hammering. Not one word about the wedding, not one word about how I was excluded, humiliated, erased. Just money, always money. I typed, deleted, retyped. Finally, I wrote back, "Emma, we need to talk, face to face." An hour later, she replied, "Fine, tomorrow at 6, at our apartment." I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table, the phone glowing beside me, rehearsing words I had never thought I'd have to say to my daughter. By the time the sun rose, my chest felt heavy with dread. Grace called me that morning, her voice gentle as always. "Are you sure you're ready for this, Ruthie?" Confrontations? They can leave scars. I swallowed hard. The scars are already there, Grace. I just need to see if Emma even notices them. Clara, of course, had no such hesitation. When I told her, she smacked the table and said, "Good! About damn time! Don't you dare let them twist this into pity. Stand your ground." At 5:30 the next evening, I pulled up outside Emma and Lena's apartment. The building was newer than I remembered, freshly painted, with flower boxes in the windows. A far cry from the shabby place Emma had lived in years ago when I was helping with rent. I climbed the stairs, my knees trembling, and knocked on the door. Emma answered. For a moment my breath caught. She was still my little girl in some ways. The curve of her smile, the way her hair fell in waves around her face. But there was something else there too, a distance, a coldness. "Mom," she said flatly. No hug, no warmth, just a word. Behind her, Lena appeared, her arm draped possessively around Emma's waist. She smiled, but it wasn't kind. "Ruth, what a surprise." "You invited me," I said sharply. "Or did you forget already?" Emma stepped aside reluctantly, and I entered the apartment. My eyes swept the room. New furniture, expensive rugs, artwork on the walls. The kind of life I knew Emma and Lena couldn't afford on their own. The kind of life I had unknowingly paid for. We sat down at the dining table. Lena poured herself a glass of wine, then leaned back in her chair like a queen surveying her kingdom. Emma sat beside her, fidgeting slightly, eyes flickering between us. I folded my hands on the table, forcing my voice to stay steady. "Emma, I saw the wedding photos." Emma's cheeks flushed, but she didn't speak. I continued, my voice trembling with hurt. "You didn't invite me. You didn't want me there." And then, when I asked why, Lena told me it was only for special people. Emma's head dropped, her hair falling forward like a curtain. "But Lena," she smirked. "Well, Ruth, it was a small ceremony, intimate. We couldn't invite everyone." "Everyone?" I snapped, my voice cracking. "I'm not everyone. I'm her mother." Silence hung in the air. Emma's hands twisted in her lap, but she said nothing. Nothing. I turned my gaze to her. "Emma, do you understand what that did to me? Do you understand what it felt like to sit in my kitchen, alone, while strangers toasted to your happiness?" Finally, Emma looked up, her eyes glistening. "Mom, it wasn't personal. We wanted to keep it simple." "Not personal?" My laugh was bitter, sharp. "You cut your own mother out of your wedding. If that isn't personal, then what is?" Lena leaned forward, her smile tight. "Ruth, maybe it's time you accept that Emma is an adult now. She makes her own choices. And sometimes those choices don't revolve around you." My chest burned, but I refused to back down. I don't expect her life to revolve around me, but I do expect respect. And excluding me wasn't just disrespect. It was betrayal. Emma flinched, but Lena's hand squeezed hers, silencing her. "And now," I said, pulling out my phone, "after all that, you text me asking for $2,000. Without a single word of apology, without a single acknowledgement of what you've done. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Mom, we need it. Lena's ours." "No," I cut her off, my voice sharper than I'd ever used with her. "You don't need it. You want it, and you've been wanting for years. Rent, groceries, car repairs, medical bills. Every time you called, I answered. Every time, I gave. And where has it gotten me? Left out, replaced, erased." Tears spilled down Emma's cheeks. "I didn't mean. I leaned forward, my own tears blurring my vision. "Didn't mean to hurt me." Then why let Lena tell me I wasn't special? Why not defend me? Why not pick up the phone and say, "Mom, I still love you, huh? You didn't mean to." Emma, silence is a choice, and you chose her over me. Lena's smile faltered then, just slightly, but she quickly masked it with a sip of wine. Emma's voice broke. "Mom, please, I'm just trying to keep the peace." I shook my head, my heart splintering. Peace without truth isn't peace, Emma. It's surrender. And I won't surrender any more. For the first time in my life, I stood up at her table and walked away without giving, without opening my wallet, without bending. Lena's voice followed me, cold and smug. "Don't do anything you'll regret, Ruth." I turned at the door, my voice trembling but firm. "The only regret I have is raising my daughter to believe love means being used. That ends today." And then I left. When I got home, I collapsed on the couch, sobbing into my hands. Grace called an hour later, and I poured it all out between tears. She cried with me, her voice trembling. "Oh, Ruthie, I know it hurts, but I'm proud of you. You finally spoke your truth." Clara, when I told her the next day, simply nodded. "Good, you needed to. But don't think this is the end. They won't let go of your money that easily. This was just round one." I didn't want to believe her. I wanted to think Emma's tears meant something, that maybe, just maybe, she had heard me. But deep down, I feared Clara was right. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a war. The only regret I have is raising my daughter to believe love means being used. That ends today. And then I left. The hallway outside their apartment felt longer than it should have. My legs were trembling, my heart hammering against my ribs, but for the first time in years, I wasn't walking away empty. I was walking away with something fierce burning inside me, resolve. By the time I reached my car, tears blurred my vision. I gripped the steering wheel and let myself cry, not just for the daughter I'd lost to silence and manipulation, but for the woman I was finally reclaiming inside myself. When I got home, I collapsed on the couch, sobbing into my hands. Grace called an hour later, and I poured it all out between tears. She cried with me, her voice trembling. "Oh, Ruthie, I know it hurts, but I'm proud of you. You finally spoke your truth." Clara, when I told her the next day, simply nodded. "Good, you needed to. But don't think this is the end. They won't let go of your money that easily." This was just round one. I didn't want to believe her. I wanted to think Emma's tears meant something, that maybe, just maybe, she had heard me. But deep down, I feared Clara was right. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a war. I turned at the door, my voice trembling but firm. Those were the last words I said to Emma and Lena before I walked out of that apartment. But they echoed in me long after the door shut. For days, I replayed that confrontation in my head. Emma's silence, Lena's smugness, my own tears. I had spoken truths I never thought I'd dare say aloud, but Clara was right. It didn't end there. If anything, it stirred something deeper. The storm broke the following week. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the phone rang. Not Emma this time, not Lena, but a lawyer. "Mrs. Thompson?" the voice asked, crisp and professional. "I'm calling regarding your late husband Daniel's estate. There are some matters that have been brought to our attention." My stomach dropped. "Estate? That was settled years ago." "Yes, ma'am," the lawyer said. "But apparently your daughter Emma and her spouse Lena have raised questions concerning the distribution of assets. Specifically, the family home and any remaining savings accounts." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "What?" "They've requested a review," the lawyer continued. "We'd like to set up a meeting." When I hung up the phone, my hands were shaking so hard, I nearly dropped it. Grace came over as soon as I called her. She found me pacing the kitchen, tears in my eyes. "They want Daniel's will," I gasped. "They want the house. They want everything." Grace's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh, Ruthie." Before she could say more, Clara stormed in, summoned by the urgency in my voice. She didn't bother sitting. "I knew it. I told you this wasn't about love. It's about money. That woman, that Lena, has been eyeing this house since the day she sank her claws into Emma." I sank into a chair, my voice trembling. "But this is my home. Daniel left it to me. I've lived here 30 years. Every memory of him is in these walls. They can't just—" "They'll try," Clara cut in sharply. "And they'll dress it up in legal words and false concern. But make no mistake, Ruth. This isn't Emma speaking. This is Lena. She wants securities, and she's decided to snatch it out of your hands." Grace sat beside me, tears in her eyes. "Maybe Emma doesn't realize what she's doing. Maybe Lena convinced her this is what Daniel would have wanted." "No," Clara snapped. "Daniel would never have wanted his wife tossed aside. He would never have wanted Ruth to lose her home. Don't you dare sugarcoat this, Grace. Emma is complicit. She signed her name to this." The word complicit echoed in my head like a hammer. That night I went to the closet and pulled out Daniel's old leather box. Inside were his papers. The will, the insurance documents, the savings accounts. My hands shook as I unfolded the will, the familiar handwriting staring back at me. "To my beloved wife Ruth, I leave our home and all possessions therein, to do with as she sees fit. To our daughter Emma I leave a share of my savings to be held in trust until her 30th birthday." Emma had already received her portion years ago. The home was mine, Daniel had been clear. And yet here I was, being dragged into battle by my own child. I sat on the bed, clutching the will, tears spilling onto the paper. "Why, Daniel?" I whispered. "Why is she doing this to me? Why is our little girl letting a stranger rewrite our story?" When I told Grace the next day, she wept openly. "She's lost, Ruthie. She's so lost." Clara, on the other hand, slammed her hand on the table. "Then it's time for Ruth to be found. No more crying in kitchens. No more being the victim. You fight this. You fight like hell." And for the first time, I felt the spark in me catch flame. Because this wasn't just about money. This was about memory, about love, about the life Daniel and I had built together brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice. If Emma and Lena thought they could strip that away, they were about to learn something. I wasn't invisible. I wasn't weak. And I wasn't giving up my home without a fight. The letter arrived on a Thursday morning, slipped under my door like a snake in the grass. A thick envelope, crisp and heavy, with the law firm's name stamped in bold across the front. My hands shook as I tore it open. Inside was a notice. Emma and Lena had formally filed a petition to review Daniel's estate. They were challenging the will. I sank into the kitchen chair, the paper rattling in my grip. Challenging the will. My Daniel's words, his final wishes, being dragged into question by the very daughter he had adored. When Grace came over later, I handed her the letter. She read it silently, her lips pressed into a thin line. Tears filled her eyes. "Oh, Ruthie, this is cruel." Clara, who had arrived just behind her, snatched the paper and skimmed it with narrowed eyes. Her jaw tightened. "I knew it. I told you. They're vultures." "And now they're circling the house." Grace tried to soothe me. "Maybe Emma doesn't fully understand what's happening. Maybe Lena pushed her into this." But Clara cut her off, her voice sharp as a blade. "Stop making excuses, Grace. Emma signed her name to this. She's not a child anymore. She knows what she's doing." I buried my face in my hands, whispering, "Why is she doing this? Why is she tearing apart her father's memory like this?" No one had an answer. The first court date came quickly, too quickly. I sat in that cold courtroom, the air heavy with the scent of polished wood and ink, my heart pounding in my chest. Emma sat across the room, Lena at her side, the lawyer whispering into their ears. Emma wouldn't meet my eyes. When the judge called the case, I felt Daniel's will like a shield in my trembling hands. The lawyer I had scraped together money to hire spoke firmly. "The will is clear. The home was left to Ruth Thompson. The savings were already distributed. There is no ambiguity." But Lena's lawyer leaned forward, his voice smooth and oily. "Your Honor, while the will may be clear on paper, there are questions as to Daniel Thompson's intent. Our clients believe he would have wanted his daughter to have a secure future, one that includes the family home." The words sliced through me. Secure future. As if my entire existence, 30 years in that house, was disposable. I looked at Emma, desperate for some sign of doubt, some flicker of regret, but she kept her eyes fixed on the table, her face pale and rigid. When court adjourned, Grace squeezed my hand. "Stay strong, Ruthie. Truth is on your side." But Clara's voice was darker. "Truth doesn't always win in court. Money, lies, manipulation, that's what wins. You'd better be ready." That night I walked through the house, touching the walls Daniel had painted, the floorboards he had sanded, the garden he had planted with his own hands. Memories clung to every corner. This wasn't just a house, it was my life. And I swore then, as the moonlight spilled through the windows, that I wouldn't let them take it from me. Not Lena, not even Emma, no one. But as the shadows lengthened, so did the battle, and I knew the courtroom was only the beginning. The days after court felt like walking through fog. Every sound echoed, every step felt heavy, every corner of the house whispered of Daniel. I moved from room to room as if the walls themselves were watching, bracing me for the storm that was gathering. Grace visited daily, her soft presence a balm. She cooked, she knitted, she held my hand in silence when words failed. Clara came less often, but when she did, her fire lit the rooms. She refused to let me crumble. "You have to dig, Ruth," she said one evening, her eyes sharp as glass. "Find out who Lena really is, because I promise you, she's not the angel she pretends to be." At first, I resisted. Digging felt dirty. Emma had chosen Lena, and as much as it hurt, I didn't want to sink into suspicion. But Clara was relentless. "Do you think Daniel would want you sitting here, waiting to be stripped of everything? Or would he want you to fight for the truth?" she pressed. Her words haunted me, so one sleepless night, I pulled out my old laptop and started searching. Lena wasn't difficult to find. Her social media was public, carefully curated with glossy photos of vacations, parties, nights out. But the deeper I scrolled, the more inconsistencies I saw. In one post, she bragged about working at a marketing firm. In another, a year later, she claimed she had retired from teaching. Retired? At 32? My gut twisted. I dug deeper, finding news clippings, old tagged posts, bits and pieces that didn't add up. And then, buried in a local archive, I found it. A court record. Lena's name attached to a lawsuit filed by a former employer. Fraud, embezzlement. Settled quietly, but not erased. My breath caught. Fraud. The next morning I told Grace. She gasped, her hands flying to her chest. "Oh, Ruthie, that poor girl. She doesn't know what she's gotten herself into." Clara, when I showed her, smirked grimly. "I knew it. I smelled the rot on that woman from the start. And now you've got proof." I felt sick, torn between vindication and devastation. Proof meant I wasn't crazy. Lena's motives were rotten. But it also meant Emma was deeper in danger than I had feared. When the second court session came, I sat straighter in my chair. Lena looked smug, as always. Emma pale beside her. But this time, when their lawyer spoke of Emma's financial stability, I raised my hand to my own attorney. "Tell the court," I whispered. And he did. Calmly, clearly, he submitted the public record of Lena's fraud case. The courtroom shifted instantly, murmurs, gasps, Emma's face draining of color. Lena's mask faltered, if only for a moment. The judge leaned forward. "This is highly relevant. Mrs. Thompson, why was this not disclosed?" Lena stammered, her smooth confidence cracking. Emma turned to her, whispering furiously, confusion and betrayal flashing across her face. For the first time, I saw doubt in my daughter's eyes. When court adjourned, Grace hugged me tightly. "You did it, Ruthie. You showed the truth." But Clara's words cut deeper. "This was only the first crack. Now you watch. When rats are cornered, they bite harder." That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The fire inside me burned hotter. I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Because Lena had secrets, and I was going to drag every last one of them into the light. I will never forget the look on Emma's face when the judge read Lena's fraud record aloud in court. It was as though the floor had fallen out from under her. Her lips parted, her eyes darted between me and Lena, and for the first time in months, I saw something besides cold silence. I saw doubt. It flickered just for a moment, like a candle struggling against the wind, but it was there, and I clung to it as if it were a lifeline. After that hearing, Emma didn't call me. She didn't send a message. But I noticed her silence had changed. Before, it had been firm, chosen, complicit. Now it felt fractured, uncertain, almost guilty. Grace saw it too. One evening she sat with me on the porch, knitting needles, clicking softly. "I think she's waking up, Ruthie," she said gently. "You saw her facing court. She didn't know. Lena kept that from her." I wanted to believe Grace. God, I wanted to. But Clara was less hopeful. "She might have seen the crack," Clara said bluntly, "but cracks don't always mean the wall will fall. Sometimes people plaster over them because they're too afraid to admit they built their lives on rotten bricks." Her words hit hard. Was Emma too far gone? Would she cling to Lena even tighter now, desperate to preserve the fantasy she had built? The answer came a week later. I was leaving the grocery store, my arms heavy with bags, when I heard a voice behind me. "Mom!" I froze. Slowly I turned. Emma stood a few feet away, her hair pulled back, her eyes swollen like she hadn't slept in days. For a moment neither of us spoke. The silence stretched, heavy and trembling. Then she whispered, "Why didn't you tell me about Lena sooner?" The question gutted me. Tears welled in my eyes. "Because you wouldn't have listened, Emma. You were so in love, so certain she was your world. You would have thought I was jealous, controlling, bitter. And maybe I was afraid of losing you completely." Emma's chin quivered. "She told me you hated her, that you'd never accept her. That's why she didn't want you at the wedding." I shook my head, my heart breaking all over again. I didn't hate her, Emma. I hated the way she pulled you from me. I hated the lies. But I never hated you, and I never would. Her eyes filled with tears. I thought you were being cruel, Mom. I thought you just didn't want me happy. And now? I asked softly. She swallowed hard. Now I don't know what to think. I reached out, but she stepped back, her arms wrapped around herself. I can't leave her, Mom. Not yet. She'll destroy me if I do. Her words chilled me to the bone. She was afraid. My daughter was living in fear, not love. Emma, I whispered, you don't have to stay. You don't have to let her control you. Your father would never want this for you. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She shook her head, whispered, I have to go, and fled into the parking lot. I stood there trembling, my groceries forgotten, watching the cracks widen in my daughter's eyes. When I told Grace later, she wept openly. She's breaking, Ruthie. She wants to come back to you, but she doesn't know how. Clara, however, crossed her arms. She saw the truth and still ran back. That tells me she's not ready. And until she's ready, Ruth, you'd better guard your heart. Because Lena isn't done fighting. That night I lay awake thinking of Emma's face, her tears, her fear. For the first time I saw the war inside her. Love against manipulation. Loyalty against truth. And I prayed, harder than I ever had, that the cracks would widen enough to let her see the light. Because cracks are where the light gets in. And maybe, just maybe, they would be where I got my daughter back. It didn't take long for Lena to sense the cracks. A week after that brief encounter with Emma in the grocery store parking lot, the phone rang late at night. I answered without thinking, my heart leaping with foolish hope that it was Emma. It wasn't. Ruth. Her voice slithered through the line, low and sharp. Lena. I don't know what lies you've been feeding Emma, she said, her tone icy, but it ends now. I sat up straighter in bed, my chest tightening. The only lies, Lena, are the ones you've wrapped around my daughter for years. And now she's starting to see them. A cold laugh crackled through the phone. You think you've won something because you dragged an old court case into the light? Please, Emma is mine. She loves me, and I won't let you poison her. My hands shook, but I forced my voice steady. Emma is not a possession, Lena. She's my daughter, and one day she'll see you for what you are. Silence. Then Lena's voice dropped lower, venom dripping from every word. If you keep meddling, Ruth, you'll regret it. You think you're safe in that little house? You're not. I'll take it. I'll take everything. And when you're left with nothing, Emma will still be standing by my side. The line went dead. I sat there in the dark, the phone pressed to my ear, my whole body trembling. The threats had begun. The next morning I told Grace. She gasped, her knitting falling from her lap. Oh, Ruthie, that's horrible. She's trying to scare you. Don't let her win. But Clara's face turned to stone. Good! Let her show her hand. Threats mean she's scared, and scared people make mistakes. I wanted to believe Clara, but the fear lingered. Every creak of the house made me jump. Every shadow outside the window felt like it was watching. I started locking the doors twice, checking the windows, leaving a light on in the hallway at night. And then came the letters. 2 days later, I found one in my mailbox. No return address. Just my name scrawled in bold letters. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Back off, or you'll lose everything. I crumpled it in my shaking hands, tears stinging my eyes. Grace urged me to go to the police. You need protection, Ruthie. She can't get away with this. But Clara shook her head. Unless you can prove it's her, the police will call it a prank. Save it. Document everything. When the time comes, these threats will bury her. I tucked the letter into Daniel's old box with the will and court papers, my heart heavy. That night, as I sat alone in the kitchen, the phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from an unknown number. "Emma belongs to me. Stay out of her life." My chest ached, but I whispered into the silence, "She doesn't belong to anyone, not even me, and one day she'll break free." I prayed Emma hadn't seen the side of Lena I was seeing now, but deep down I knew she had. She had seen the anger, the control, the threats, and that was why her eyes were cracking in the first place. The war was no longer just about money. It was about Emma's soul. And I was ready to fight for it, even if it meant walking through shadows darker than I had ever known. The first time Emma came to me in secret, it was a rainy Wednesday night. I heard the knock at the door just after 10, soft and hurried, like someone who didn't want to be noticed. When I opened it, my daughter stood there, drenched from the storm, her hair plastered to her face, her eyes wide with fear. "Emma," I breathed, pulling her inside. "What are you doing here?" She shook her head, shivering. I didn't have anywhere else to go. I wrapped her in a blanket, sat her by the fire, and made tea the way she liked it when she was little. Honey instead of sugar, a splash of milk. For a long while, she just sat there, staring into the flames, her hands trembling around the cup. Finally, she whispered, "She watches everything I do. Every call, every message. She goes through my phone at night. I couldn't text you, Mom. I had to come here." My heart clenched. "Emma, is she hurting you?" Emma shook her head quickly. Not like that. But she controls everything. The money, the decisions, even who I can see. If I even mention you, she explodes." Her voice cracked. "I'm so tired, Mom. I don't even recognize myself anymore." Tears blurred my vision. I reached for her hand. "You're still you, sweetheart. You're my Emma, and no matter how deep she's pulled you, you can come back." Her grip tightened desperately. "I don't know how." Grace came by the next morning and found Emma asleep on the couch, wrapped in blankets. Her eyes filled with tears. "Oh, Ruthie, she looks like a child again." I nodded, brushing a strand of hair from Emma's forehead. "She's breaking, Grace, but she's still afraid." Later that day, Clara arrived, her eyes narrowing at the sight of Emma. Well, look who finally remembered where she came from. "Clara," I warned. But Emma sat up, her face pale, her voice small. "You were right about her, about Lena." Clara's gaze softened, just slightly. "I wish I hadn't been, Emma. But better you see the truth now than never." Emma came to me in secret 3 more times that month. Each time, she stayed a little longer. Each time, she opened up a little more. She told me about Lena's spending, how every dollar Emma earned disappeared into Lena's whims. She told me about the fights, the accusations, the threats Lena hurled whenever Emma questioned her. "I wanted to believe she loved me," Emma whispered one night, tears streaking her cheeks. "But it's not love, is it?" I pulled her close, my own tears falling. "No, sweetheart, love doesn't chain you. Love sets you free." But freedom wouldn't come easily. Each visit, Emma left before dawn, terrified Lena would notice her absence. I watched her slip into the night, my heart breaking all over again. Grace prayed with me after each visit, her voice trembling. "Lord, bring Emma back into the light. Protect her from darkness." Clara, on the other hand, grew more impatient. "She can't keep sneaking around forever. At some point, Ruth, she has to choose, you or Lena. Truth or lies. And you'd better be ready for the fallout when she does." I knew Clara was right. But for now, I clung to the stolen hours, the whispered confessions, the small cracks of honesty that slipped through the shadows. Because in those moments, I had my daughter back. Not fully, not safely, but back enough to remember who she was before Lena twisted her. And each secret visit gave me hope that one day she wouldn't just knock on my door in the night. One day she would walk through it in the daylight and stay. The storm I had been dreading finally came. It was a Sunday evening when Emma appeared at my door again, her face pale, her hands trembling. She didn't even bother with excuses this time. She simply collapsed into my arms, sobbing. "She knows, Mom," she choked. "Lena knows I've been coming here." I guided her inside, my heart pounding. "What happened?" Emma shook her head, tears streaking down her cheeks. "She found a message I didn't delete. She screamed at me for hours. She called me a traitor, said I was betraying her. She threw a glass at the wall." Her voice cracked. "I was so scared, Mom. I thought she was going to." She broke off, unable to finish. I held her tightly, fury and fear warring inside me. "You don't have to go back, Emma. Not this time. Stay here. Stay with me." But Emma's eyes darted to the window as though Lena's shadow might already be there. "She'll come for me. She'll come for you. You don't know what she's capable of." Grace rushed over when I called her, wrapping Emma in her arms and whispering prayers over her trembling body. Clara arrived soon after, her face grim. "I told you this would happen," Clara said, her voice low but steady. "This is Lena's breaking point. She knows she's losing her grip, and that makes her dangerous." Emma buried her face in her hands. "I don't know what to do. I love her, but I hate her. I feel trapped, like I can't breathe without her permission." I cupped her face in my hands, forcing her to look at me. "Emma, listen to me. Love should never feel like a cage. Your father and I didn't raise you for this. You are stronger than her chains." But Emma only wept harder. "I don't feel strong, Mom. I feel broken." The room fell silent. Grace's tears slipped quietly down her cheeks. Clara's eyes burned with a fury I recognized all too well. Finally, Clara said, "Then we make her strong again, together." That night, Emma stayed under my roof, her first night without Lena in years. She slept fitfully, waking from nightmares, clutching at the blankets like a child. I sat beside her bed until dawn, whispering the same lullabies I had sung when she was small. The next morning, my phone rang. The voice on the other end sent ice through my veins. "You think you've won, Ruth?" Lena hissed. "You think she'll stay with you? She's mine, and if she doesn't come home by tonight, I'll make sure neither of you have a home to go back to." The line went dead before I could respond. Grace nearly fainted when I told her. "We have to call the police this time, Ruthie. This is a threat. You can't ignore it." Clara nodded sharply. "Enough hiding. Enough fear. It's time Lena learns she's not the only one who can fight dirty." I stood there in my kitchen, the weight of Lena's words pressing down on me, and for the first time I realized the truth. This wasn't just about wills or houses or even secrets anymore. This was survival. And my daughter's life, her very soul, hung in the balance. The breaking point had come, and none of us would leave it unchanged. That very afternoon, I drove Emma to the police station. Her hands trembled the entire way, clutching at my sleeve like a child lost in a storm. She barely spoke, only whispered, "What if she finds out I'm here?" Inside, the officer behind the desk listened carefully as Emma and I explained everything. The threats, the controlling behavior, the phone calls. He scribbled notes, but his tone was cautious. Without concrete proof, he said, "We can file a report, but it may not result in immediate protection." Emma's eyes widened, panic breaking across her face. "So we just wait until she makes good on her threats? Until she broke off, her voice breaking. I wrapped an arm around her, glaring at the officer through my tears. "You file it, every word. My daughter deserves to be heard." Grace placed a trembling hand on Emma's back, murmuring prayers as though trying to shield her with her faith. Claire leaned across the counter, her tone as sharp as broken glass. "Write it down. If nothing else, when this explodes, you'll know you ignored the warning signs." The officer nodded quickly and typed faster. The report was filed. It wasn't the safety I craved for Emma, but it was a paper trail, proof that Lena's shadow was tightening around us. That night, Emma stayed again. She drifted into restless sleep on the couch, clutching a pillow like it was her last anchor. I sat across from her in the dim light, watching the rise and fall of her chest, remembering when she was a child, and her nightmares were of thunder, not of the woman she loved. I realized then, the battle had shifted, no longer just about property or inheritance, no longer about wills or words on paper. This was war for Emma's freedom. And as I sat there, listening to the storm beat against the windows, I whispered a vow to the night. "She will not go back to you, Lena. Not this time. Not ever again." The day of the next court hearing dawned gray and cold, the kind of morning where the sky itself feels like it's holding its breath. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my cup of tea gone cold, when Emma walked in. She wore no makeup, her eyes red from another sleepless night. But she stood straighter than I'd seen her in months. "I'm coming with you," she said simply. Grace gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Clara narrowed her eyes, then gave a single sharp nod. "Good," Clara said. "It's time she sees what her wife really is when the world is watching." At the courthouse, whispers rippled through the hall when Emma stepped in beside me. Lena was already there, her lawyer at her side, her eyes narrowing like knives when she saw Emma holding my arm. The tension in that room could have split stone. The judge called the case. Papers shuffled, lawyers cleared throats, and then the fire began. Lena's lawyer rose first, his tone smooth, practiced. "Your Honor, my clients maintain that Mr. Daniel Thompson's intent was to secure his daughter's future. The home, though written in his will for Mrs. Ruth Thompson, was meant as a legacy for Emma. It is only right and fair that she share in its possession." My attorney stood. "The will is explicit. Daniel left the home to his wife. His daughter has already received her portion of the estate. What we see here is not a question of intent, but of greed." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Then Lena herself rose, her voice trembling with false outrage. "Ruth has poisoned Emma against me. She drags up mistakes from my past, twists everything, and now she wants to take Emma away from me. This is about control, not justice." Emma suddenly stood, her voice breaking. "No, Lena, this is about truth. You lied to me. You hid your past. You tried to cut me off from my own mother." The courtroom froze. Every eye turned toward her. Lena's face drained of color, then flushed with rage. "Emma, sit down. Don't do this here." But Emma didn't sit. Her hands trembled, but her voice rose, clear and strong. "You told me she hated me, that she didn't want me at my own wedding. That was a lie. You told me she wanted to control me, when the truth is, you're the one who controlled every breath I took." Gasps filled the room. The judge banged his gavel for silence, but the damage was done. Lena's mask had cracked, and the fire in Emma's voice scorched whatever image Lena had tried to preserve. I couldn't stop the tears that rolled down my cheeks. For the first time, my daughter stood not as Lena's shadow, but as her own woman. When the judge finally restored order, his words rang with quiet gravity. "This court cannot and will not tolerate manipulation of testimony, nor threats against parties involved. Based on the evidence presented, Daniel Thompson's will stands. The home remains the sole property of Ruth Thompson." The gavel struck. Lena sat frozen, her jaw tight, her fists clenched. Emma sank into her chair, trembling, tears streaking her face. I reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. Grace sobbed quietly behind us, whispering thanks to God. Clara exhaled sharply, muttering, "About damn time." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, cameras flashing. Lena stormed past them, her lawyer hissing in her ear, her expression twisted with fury. Emma clung to me, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry, Mom, for everything." I pulled her into my arms, holding her as tightly as I had when she was a child. "You're home now. That's all that matters." But even as the victory settled over me, Clara's warning echoed in my mind. "This isn't over, Ruth. When people like her lose in the light, they go crawling into the dark. And that's when they're the most dangerous." The fire in the courtroom had given me back my daughter, had preserved my home, had burned through Lena's lies. But the war, I feared, was far from finished. For a moment after the judge's gavel struck, I allowed myself to breathe, to believe it was over. The home was mine, the will upheld, Emma back at my side. The fire in the courtroom had burned away the lies, and I thought maybe, just maybe, I could finally rest. But Clara was right. Victory in the light often summons shadows in the dark. It began with silence. Lena vanished from the courthouse, and for 3 whole days we heard nothing. Emma stayed with me, barely leaving the house, jumpy at every sound. Grace hovered close, praying over us, filling the rooms with her steady presence. Clara kept watch like a soldier, sharp-eyed and unsparing. On the 4th day, the storm broke. I woke to the sound of glass shattering. My heart lurched. I ran to the living room to find a brick lying on the rug, shards of window glittering around it. Emma screamed, clutching my arm. Attached to the brick was a note, scrawled in jagged handwriting. "This isn't over." Grace gasped when she saw it, her face pale as milk. Clara snatched the note up, her eyes blazing. "Coward!" she spat. "She thinks she can scare you into running. Not on my watch." We called the police, but they shrugged. No cameras, no witnesses. Another report filed. Another warning stacked on the pile. That night, Emma cried herself to sleep in my bed. I stroked her hair, whispering, "You're safe now, sweetheart. You're safe with me." But in my own chest, fear gnawed. The shadows grew thicker. Strange cars slowed in front of the house. Unfamiliar numbers called at odd hours, hanging up when I answered. Once, I opened the door to find a dead bouquet of roses left on the porch, their petals blackened, the smell of decay choking. Emma grew quieter, her eyes haunted. "She won't stop, Mom," she whispered one night. "I know her. She'll destroy us if she can't have me." I pulled her close, but Clara answered before I could. "Then we destroy her first. Enough waiting for the next blow. It's time to drag every last secret of hers into the light." Emma trembled. "I don't want revenge, Auntie. I just want peace." Clara's gaze softened, but her voice stayed firm. "Peace doesn't come by begging, child. It comes by fighting until the enemy has no more claws left." Grace shook her head. "Peace comes from forgiveness, not vengeance." The 2 sisters argued long into the night, but I sat silently, holding Emma's hand, staring at the broken window. Because deep down, I knew something terrible. Lena wasn't finished. The courtroom had taken her power, but her hatred ran deeper than paper or gavel. She wanted to break us in ways the law could not touch. And as I lay awake beside my daughter, listening to the wind whistle through the cracks where the glass had shattered, I whispered a vow to myself and to Daniel's memory. I will not let her win. Not in the light, not in the dark, whatever shadows she sends, I will meet them head on. Because this wasn't just about inheritance anymore. This was about survival. And survival meant being ready for the night to grow darker before the dawn. The night after the brick crashed through my window, sleep abandoned our house. Emma lay curled beside me, twitching at every sound, while I stared at the ceiling, my mind a battlefield of fear and fury. By morning, Grace was already at the stove, making breakfast like she used to when Emma was a child. The smell of frying eggs and coffee filled the kitchen, trying to cover the tension that lingered in every corner. "Eat, Ruthie," she urged softly when I wandered in. "You need strength. Worry won't keep you standing." Emma sat silently at the table, pushing food around her plate, her eyes red. Clara arrived not long after, her voice cutting through the fragile calm like a blade. "We can't sit here waiting for her next move. That woman's escalating. First threats, then bricks. What's next? Fire? She won't stop until we put an end to her." Grace turned, frowning. "Clara, vengeance will only breed more darkness." "Don't you start, Grace," Clara snapped. "This isn't about vengeance. It's about survival. Ruth can't keep living in fear, and Emma can't heal while that viper still has her fangs sunk in. We need to strike back. Legally, publicly, every way we can." Emma flinched. "I don't want more fighting. I just want it to be over." Grace knelt beside her, taking her hand. "Sweetheart, sometimes the only way to end a war is to stop throwing stones. If you let hate live in your heart, it will consume you just as much as Lena has." Clara scoffed. "Forgiveness won't keep a brick from flying through the window. Forgiveness won't stop her from stalking this house. Ruth, you need to listen to me. We dig deeper. We find every skeleton in Lena's closet, and we drag them into the light until she has nowhere left to hide." I sat there, torn between my sisters' voices. Grace's compassion pulled at me, soothing but fragile. Clara's fire ignited the embers of my anger, demanding action. Emma's quiet voice broke through. "She'll never stop until she's destroyed, Mom. I know her, but I don't want to become like her." The room fell silent. I reached across the table, covering Emma's hand with mine. "Then maybe we find a middle path. Not hatred, not surrender. Truth. The truth has power, Emma. It's what broke you free in the courtroom. It's what will protect us now." Clara leaned back, arms crossed. "Truth is fine, but truth without action is just words on paper." Grace smiled faintly. "And action without love is just more chains." The debate carried on through the day, Grace urging patience and forgiveness, Clara insisting on confrontation. Emma drifted between them like a fragile reed in the wind, her heart pulled in both directions. That evening, as the sun dipped low, Emma stood at the window, watching the shadows gather outside. "I don't know what the right answer is," she whispered, "but I know I can't live in fear anymore." Her words settled something inside me. This battle wasn't just mine anymore. It was hers, too. I looked at Grace, then Clara, and felt a strange calm wash over me. "Then we fight," I said softly. "But we fight with truth. We fight with light. And we fight until Lena has no more darkness left to hide in." Grace nodded, tears shining in her eyes. Clara gave a curt, satisfied nod. And Emma, my daughter, for the first time in years, looked like she believed she might survive this. That night, as I tucked her into bed, she whispered, "Thank you, Mom, for not giving up on me." I kissed her forehead, my own eyes wet. "Never, Emma. I will never give up on you." Outside, the shadows still gathered, but inside, for the first time, our fire burned brighter. It was almost peaceful for a week. Almost. Emma stayed close, sleeping in her old room, sitting at the kitchen table with Grace's warm breakfast and Clara's stern lectures. We began to laugh again, little moments of light breaking through the heaviness. For the first time in years, I dared to believe we might finally be safe. But Lena was never far. The trap began with a letter. Not the jagged, hateful scrawl I had come to expect, but neat, careful handwriting, Emma's name on the envelope. No return address. Emma found it in the mailbox and froze. She carried it inside like it was ticking. We sat around the table, Grace wringing her hands, Clara glaring at the paper as if she could burn it through sheer will. Finally, Emma opened it. Emma, my love, I know you've been confused, misled by your mother's bitterness and Clara's venom. But I forgive you. I miss you. I only ever wanted to protect you. Please, meet me. One conversation, no lawyers, no shouting, just us. I'll wait at the cafe where we had our first date, tomorrow, noon. Emma's hands shook. Tears blurred her eyes. She sounds so sincere. Clara slammed her fist on the table. Sincere? That witch wouldn't know sincerity if it bit her. It's a trap, Emma. She wants you back under her thumb. Grace touched Emma's arm gently. But maybe she truly wants to make peace. God can change even the hardest hearts. I sat frozen, torn. Part of me wanted to believe, to hope Lena had finally broken under the weight of truth. But another part, the part scarred by years of manipulation, knew better. Emma looked at me, her voice trembling. What if she means it, Mom? What if she really wants to fix things? I took her hands, squeezing them tightly. Sweetheart, if she truly wanted to fix things, she would come here. She would face us all. She wouldn't ask you to meet her alone. Emma's tears fell. I need closure. I need to hear it from her lips. Clara growled. Closure is a noose when it's offered by a snake. Don't you dare go. Grace whispered, maybe Ruth should go with her. If Lena sees them together, maybe it will force the truth into the open. The night was restless. Emma paced her room, torn between longing and fear. I prayed in silence, my heart aching. The next day, at noon, we went, not alone. Never alone. Clara insisted on waiting in the car outside the cafe, her eyes sharp as knives. Grace sat beside her, murmuring prayers. Emma and I walked in together. Lena was already there, her smile sweet, her eyes gleaming with something colder. She rose when she saw Emma, arms open. Darling. Emma froze, then stepped back, clutching my arm. Say what you need to say, Lena. Lena's smile flickered. She sat, folding her hands. I love you. I've always loved you. Your mother has filled your head with lies, but I forgive her. Come home, Emma. We can start over. Emma shook her head, tears spilling. No, Lena. You lied to me. You controlled me. You turned me against my own family. The cafe went silent around us, eyes turning toward our table. Lena's mask cracked, her voice rising. I did it because I love you. Because without me, you'd be nothing. Her finger stabbed toward me. She just wants to keep you small. I gave you the world. Emma's voice trembled, but it was strong. You gave me chains. Gasps rippled through the cafe. Lena's face twisted, rage blazing. If you walk away from me, Emma, you'll regret it. I'll ruin both of you. I stood, my hand firm on Emma's shoulder. No, Lena, the only one who's ruined here is you. Clara and Grace rushed in as Lena stormed out, her threats echoing behind her. Emma collapsed against me, sobbing, but lighter somehow, as though chains had slipped from her shoulders. That night, as we sat together by the fire, Emma whispered, I saw her for who she really is today, and I don't want to go back." I kissed her hair, my heart swelling with fierce relief. "You don't have to, sweetheart. You're free now." But Clara's eyes were hard as she stared into the flames. "She won't let go. Not yet. Traps don't spring just once. She'll try again, and we'd better be ready." And I knew she was right. The trap had been sprung, but the war wasn't finished. The cafe confrontation should have been the end. Emma had seen Lena's mask fall away, had heard her threats with her own ears. I thought, at last, the nightmare was over. But darkness doesn't surrender quietly. It was 2 nights later when the storm finally broke. We were sitting in the living room, Grace knitting, Clara reading, Emma curled up beside me watching the fire, when the front door rattled. Hard. My heart stopped. Clara was on her feet in an instant, her voice sharp. "Stay back." The banging grew louder, followed by Lena's voice, shrill and ragged. "Emma, you're coming with me. Open this door, or I'll break it down." Emma froze, terror flooding her face. "Mom." I pulled her close, my own hands shaking. "She can't hurt you here." But the pounding didn't stop. Windows rattled. Lena screamed obscenities, threats, promises of destruction. Grace dropped her knitting and clasped her hands together, praying aloud through tears. Clara stormed to the door, her voice like thunder. "You've crossed the line, Lena! This is harassment. This is criminal. You want to fight? You'll get one. In front of the law." But Lena only laughed, wild and broken. "The law means nothing. Emma is mine. You can't keep her from me." Sirens wailed in the distance. The neighbors had called the police. Still Lena raged, kicking the door, her fists thundering against the wood. Emma buried her face in my shoulder, sobbing. And then, just as the sirens grew close, Lena shouted her last words that night. "If I can't have her, no one will." The police arrived, dragging her away screaming, her hair wild, her eyes blazing with hatred. Emma trembled in my arms, whispering over and over, "She's gone, she's gone, she's gone." But it wasn't over yet. In court the following week, Lena faced charges, harassment, threats, property damage. The evidence stacked higher than her lies. The judge's gavel struck one final time. Restraining order, probation, counseling. It wasn't prison, not yet, but it was a wall between her and us. When the verdict was read, Emma collapsed against me, sobbing with relief. "I'm free, Mom. I'm really free." Grace wept beside us, whispering praises to God. Clara let out a long, hard breath, muttering, "Finally." Outside the courthouse, reporters clamored for words. I simply said, "This isn't a story of hate, it's a story of survival. And love, the kind that doesn't chain you, but sets you free." Emma squeezed my hand, tears still on her cheeks. "Thank you, Mom, for never letting me go." That night, as we sat together in the safety of our home, Grace humming softly, Clara sipping her tea like a weary soldier, Emma rested her head on my shoulder and whispered, "I'm gonna be okay." And for the first time in years, I believed her. The reckoning had come, the storm had broken, and though the scars would remain, we had survived. We had won. The house is quiet now. For the first time in years, there are no footsteps outside, no phones buzzing with threats, no shadows pressing at the windows, just quiet. Emma sits across from me at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. Grace hums softly as she folds laundry in the living room. Clara, for once, has set her sharp tongue aside, sipping her coffee in silence. Peace, fragile, hard-won peace. Sometimes I walk through the house and touch the walls, the pictures, the worn wood of Daniel's desk. I remember the battles fought here, the tears, the fears, the confrontations that nearly tore me apart, and I remember the fire that carried me through them. When I think back on it all, the wedding I wasn't invited to, the lawsuits, the lies, the shattered glass, the bricks, the screaming at the door, I see a woman I hardly recognize, a woman who was afraid to speak, afraid to lose, afraid to fight. But that woman is gone. In her place stands me, Ruth, a mother who stood up, who held her ground, who looked betrayal in the face and said, "You will not take my soul." Emma is healing, slowly, painfully, but healing. She laughs again sometimes. Small, fragile laughs that remind me of when she was little. She tells me her dreams now, dreams not tied to anyone else's leash. She sleeps without nightmares most nights. Grace tells me this is God's mercy. Clara tells me it's justice. I think it's both, and more. Because what I've learned is this: family can wound deeper than any stranger. The ones you love most can betray you in ways you never thought possible. But love, real love, the kind that doesn't chain or control, is also what saves you. If I could speak to every woman out there who has felt invisible, who has been told she is weak, who has been pushed aside or silenced by those she raised or those she trusted, I would tell them this: you are stronger than you know. You have a voice. And even when betrayal cuts the deepest, you can rise. As for Lena, her shadow no longer haunts me. The courts bound her, the truth exposed her, and Emma saw her for what she really was. I don't know if she'll ever change. That's not my battle anymore. My battle was to protect my home, my memory of Daniel, my daughter, and myself, and I won. Not because I destroyed my enemies, but because I refused to let them destroy me. When Emma curls against me on the couch now, whispering, "Thank you, Mom, for never giving up," I feel the weight of every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of fear, and I know it was worth it. I wasn't invited to my daughter's wedding. I was cast out of her life by lies, betrayal, and greed. But in the end, the truth came out. And the truth brought her back to me. That's my story. And if there's one lesson Auntie Ruth can leave you with, it's this: don't let anyone rewrite the love that's yours. Don't let betrayal make you smaller. Stand, fight, and never give up on the people you love or on yourself. Because in the end, love and truth will outlast the shadows. Always. Up next, 2 more incredible stories are waiting for you right on your screen. If you enjoyed this one, you won't want to miss these. Just click to watch and don't forget to subscribe.